Welcome. This is the Resonate podcast with Aideen. I'm Aideen Riada. My guest today is Dr. Deb Harrell. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you so much for having me, Aideen.
I'm so excited for this conversation. Let me tell my listeners a little bit about you, Deb, before we get into our conversation. Dr. Deb Harrell is a passionate wellness warrior with 30 years of experience teaching people how to reclaim their health, body, soul, and spirit. Her inspirational workshops, retreats, and coaching have equipped people to live lives of vitality, passion, and purpose. She is the author of an amazing book called Heal Your Journey to Thriving, which is available on Amazon. I have a copy right in front of me, and I've really enjoyed reading this book. Um, for the listeners who don't know me very well, it might be good to mention that I also have a background in health. I worked in health shops for about 8 years. I have a qualification in holistic dietetics and Ki massage, which is an energy healing massage. And I didn't feel fully fulfilled in that I needed to go into the music side of my journey. And it's interesting that I'm actually seem to be coming back to um, that connection I have with um, health and understanding the value of that. Because it is a form of self love to look after yourself. And I
Hmm.
think that that's something that we should allow and embrace. So,
Right.
yeah. So, Deb, tell me a little bit about your journey to writing this book, because a book is it's a big thing. It's a huge creative endeavor. It can often be something that we can have a lot of mental blocks to seeing ourselves in that light, and it takes a huge
Hmm.
commitment. Tell us a little bit about that journey for you.
Well, I will tell you that it took multiple years to do that project. And it was something that I kind of knew I wanted to do for quite a lot of years. When I would meet with people to have a consult, you know, I would try to download all of this information to them in an hour and a half, which was really challenging. And my real goal with writing the book was to have sort of a curriculum, so to speak, or just all of that I was downloading to people in one space for them. And so that was really my goal with that book. And I, just procrastinated on it for a long time, but finally it was like, I have to do this and get this done. And so finally I did it and published it in late December 21.
It's so beautifully written, I have to say, because it's very personable, it's very relatable, and you talk a lot about your own journey to recognizing that health was so important. And I believe it relates to your daughter initially was one of the reasons that you started to become more aware that that health needed to be more of a priority.
Yeah, I would say the experience with my daughter actually launched me into the holistic health world. I actually, you know, I mean, I grew up in Kentucky and, food choices weren't always great. However, my parents were, they were born in 1915 and 1921. And fast food was never a part of our lives. Number one, we couldn't afford it. And back then, you just didn't have fast food restaurants really pop up until probably my teenage years. And so at 18, I actually became a vegetarian, and it was really all about becoming really loving animals and just not wanting to, eat them or be a part of that system. But I was a junk food vegetarian, and I had my own form of self sabotage going. And I think a lot of times with people, bad eating and abusive habits are really a form of self sabotage, and that really at the root is a situation of not valuing yourself and not loving yourself. And so I kind of, when I had children, and my daughter is my first child, I I thought, gosh, when I was pregnant, I decided I should really eat well. And then, I wanted to raise my kids to be healthy. And so I really was motivated to clean up my diet and get rid of the junk and really make it whole food plant based, which is so much more important than vegetarian or vegan. And so but when my daughter was in the first grade, she did have chronic upper respiratory infections, those kinds of things. We would go to the doctor, they'd give her antibiotics. And then a couple weeks later, we were right back. And so at the end of her first grade year, they wanted to take her tonsils and adenoids out. And I was like, screeched on the brakes and went, I think those things are in there for a reason. And that kind of launched me into really seeking out, more holistic things like homeopathy and chiropractic. And I actually got her off dairy, which was one of the keys to her getting well. And, she's 40 now and she still has her tonsil as an adenoid. So
Yay.
that was, yeah, because they're such a key component to the immune system. So,
And I know that that journey then led you to go on a journey of learning.
mm,
Really diving very deeply into things.
right.
Were you always someone who was very curious about life?
I really was. I was always a reader. I started as soon as I could read. I was constantly at the library reading books, and of course, back then it was just novels and stuff. But I've always been an avid reader, and I kind of became a personal growth junkie when my first job out of college. My first career was in accounting. I was an accountant, and my first job out of college was with Seagram, and of course, that's an alcohol company. And but it was a great job, and my boss, I was really petrified of speaking in public. And my boss, I mean, even speaking at a staff meeting of people that I worked with every day, I was nervous. And so my boss, spent a lot of money even back then to send me to the Dale Carnegie course of in human relations and public speaking. And I graduated that class, after 13 weeks as the most improved. I still had a long way to go, but that kind of really got me into the personal growth space and really always working on myself. And I still do to this day. I'm, almost 67 years old, and I'm constantly in a place of growth and really from a spiritual, emotional standpoint. And I had a lot of things to overcome from childhood, and really this really helped me to get to that place where I could love myself. It
Mm.
was really digging deep and finding out what those barriers were to being able to take care of myself.
Well, I think we have this in common. I was really lucky. My mother, I'm Irish. I'm brought up in Ireland, but my mother is American and moved from
Mhm.
America to Ireland to marry my dad, and brought with her books that most maybe Irish kids didn't have on the shelf. I was reading, I think there was books by Carl Jung on the shelf, and I had a big interest in reading, and I got to do that as a teenager and study psychology. And there was a
Mhm.
huge this willingness to find out more. I felt very lost in some ways, like as if I didn't know myself very well, and I was looking outside of myself and learning a lot. And it's all stood me in good stead. It's such a blessing when you know you don't know something.
Right. Yeah, and you kind of stay in that perpetual state of learning, and there's more that I can learn and that can help me.
Yeah, to stay teachable in that way, because I think
Yes.
we're all, and I think especially as we get a little bit older, sometimes there's a tendency to go, okay, well, this is what I believe, and I'm not changing now. But there's
Mhm.
so much more possible when we open up our mind to new ways. And so I have a little story for you that I thought was cute to share. Was reading your book, and they have a little section there on hydration. And
Mhm.
I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish my mother in law would read this. And she was visiting and I left the book out. And, because if I tell her to read it, she won't read it. I
Right.
left it out. She didn't take a look at it, but she was here on Friday and she was flicking through it. And she loved the little, you have some little time to smile, little joke
Mhm.
stories in there.
Yeah.
She was reading them out to me. She just picked it up because I had left it where she likes to sit. And I said, Mom, read the piece on dehydration. And so she read that. And so I really, really am so pleased that I had this book that I could share with her, because the way you've written it is so accessible, it's so personable. Um, it's so easy to relate to, and I think that makes it a really a really positive book, because there's lots of books on what to eat and what not to eat, but you can
Right.
feel your energy in this, Deb. You can feel your heart coming through the book.
Well, thank you. One of the things I wanted to make sure I did was not make people feel guilty. And I'll be honest, in my early journey when I was helping people in this space, I was a little judgmental and a little impatient with people. And because I'm one of these people that when I make a decision to do something, I literally draw a line in the sand and I do it. Boom. I don't go back. And so, I expected everybody to be that way. But part of my personal growth journey really was learning that not everybody's like me. People adapt and change in different ways. Some people, it's little baby steps at a time. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was not judgmental in the book and really meeting people where they were at. And the reality is, if I can inspire one change out of people reading that book, I've accomplished my goal. You know, would I love for people to apply every single aspect of that? Yes, but that's not reality. And so I appreciate your comments because that was really one of my main goals is I just wanted people to feel like they're having sitting and having a friendly conversation with me.
Yeah, and it's so true. I've actually recently been reading one of Brené Brown's books on shame, and how she got into this study of vulnerability and shame. And one of the things that was said to her as a um, young person before she finished college was that shame is not a good way to create change. People don't change if they're shamed. And
Right.
she went about her whole career then testing that. Is this actually true? And she came to a very, very strong conclusion that shame does not help people to change, judgment. And this comes back to that idea of self love and
Mhm.
allowing yourself to, like my husband calls it, give yourself a permission slip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So tell us a little bit about, like, if I don't have a lot of guests on here talking about health. You're probably the first. But tell us what you think is your top, maybe one or two tips for someone that maybe hasn't really looked into what is really healthy for them. What's the first priority for people, do you think?
Well, and I would say that there's a lot of confusion out there. I have a cartoon in my book that says, a patient talking to the doctor saying, "I want you to follow a healthy lifestyle, whatever the experts say that is this week." And that really is. There's so much health information out there that's very confusing to people. And so I would say the very number one thing that you can do to improve your health is to power up your produce. And so that means to eat a lot of plant foods, a lot of fruits and vegetables. The darker the color, the better. To eat a colorful um, diet with multiple colors a day. There's a lot of research showing. One of the things that's really important is our gut microbiome. And even with the brain, there's a lot of there's a gut brain connection. And we live in a world where a lot of people are having issues with depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. And it's really important to have a really good gut microbiome. And there's a really good book called Fiber Fueled, and it's by this brilliant doctor. And his name is Dr. B. I forget his last name, but it's a long last name. But what they found is that the more variety you eat in the plant kingdom, the healthier gut microbiome you're going to have. The fruits and vegetables also have lots of vitamins and minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, all these things that you really have to get from the plant kingdom. So power up your produce is a very number one thing. um, and then the other would be to really, and when you power up your produce you're going to get a lot more fiber. And probably the second thing is to it's not just about what you add, but it's always to really go to a whole food diet. So,
You
to
mean a
eliminate all the,
non-packaged diet?
yes, non-processed food diet, because processed foods have zero life in them. They have very, very little nutrition, if any. And we have become, we live in a very fast-paced world and people are just grabbing whatever's convenient.
Mm.
And we have an obesity crisis in America. I don't think so in Ireland, but for sure we do have an obesity crisis here. And it's happening at younger ages. And so if you really just eat whole foods, which is shopping the outside perimeter of the grocery store, not that there aren't some whole foods in the inside, like rice or something like that, but you really want to just make sure you eat whole food as much as possible.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean that you don't occasionally have a treat. I'm really big on, the 80-20 rule. If you do the right things 80% of the time, what you do the other 20% is not going to matter as much. And so, really focusing on whole foods, power up your produce and focus on whole foods.
I love it. Well, one of my, I was lucky to study nutrition and that kind of thing in my later 20s.
Hmm.
And so I had the chance to really dive deep into that. And I have to say, one of my favorite things is blueberries. I'm just like, I
Mm,
think I have blueberries every day. And if anyone
me
asks me
too.
what my secret is, I tell them eat blueberries, And so there's
True.
there's so many good things. And I loved in your book when you were talking about hydration, you mentioned how a great way to get your electrolytes is to squeeze an orange, a lemon, and a lime into a gallon of water. And
Hmm.
drink about a gallon of water a day. Is that what you? Because we don't talk in
Oh, no.
gallons in Ireland. We talk in liters, so we'll have to do both.
Yeah, I can't convert to liters for you, but I'm sure you can. No, I that's just the measurements to get a good electrolyte. But you want to drink half your body weight in ounces per day. So if let's just say you weigh 100 pounds, you want to drink 50 ounces of water. Now you need to add some to that if you're in places like Florida where you sweat a lot, or if you drink caffeine or alcohol, you'll need more hydration. So half of your body weight in ounces, but that's just a good way to make a good electrolyte drink that you can have ready and
And tasty too.
available. Very tasty.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I know that we actually met through one of my aunts, Aunt Eileen, and she had recommended that I speak to you after I became interested in a health product that you promote and she promotes that helps you to get younger. So I was wondering if that's something that you would like to talk about today. Is this something that when I saw this, um, this revolutionary kind of product, I was like, okay, I can eat everything and I can do everything well, but this is something that I don't think is. You can't hack it with nutrition fully. You can do
Right.
obviously you when we eat the blueberries and we're protecting ourselves and we're actually staying younger when we eat
Hmm.
well, but this actually seems to reverse aging. Would
Right.
you say that that is true of this?
I would say that's true. And yes, you're right. And I eat blueberries every day too, by the way. But eating right and dealing with your stress, hydrating, all those things they are anti-aging for sure. But there's not anything that I have found until this that reverses aging. And so, I'm almost 67 years old and I'm very interested in that. The older I get, the more I'm interested in it. And it's called the LifeWave patches. One of them, the main one, is called X39. And what it does is they've researched these patches. They're not just making claims. There's actually research behind it. I actually resisted getting on the patches for about 2 years, because I just kind of didn't believe. I didn't look at the research. I was kind of, acting like a know-it-all. But a lot of people talked to me about them, and I was just like, I just can't believe that really is that, going to make that do that. But then when I, finally after 2 years, I thought, you know what? I had a friend that really kept bugging me about it, and I thought, well, let me at least, look into this. Actually, look at some of the research versus just ignore it. And I was pretty impressed because what the research has shown is that I had already learned, in the last I started the patches in last September of 23. But for the couple of years prior to that, I had really learned the benefits of really like the copper peptide and actually peptides. And I had actually done a round of peptide. Most of the peptides you have to inject. And so I'd already done a round of a specific peptide that's supposed to help with inflammation. And, I did a round of injecting it every day into my body twice a day. And it's really expensive. And I saw no results. Well, what the patches do, the X39 for sure, it causes your body to boost production of the copper peptide. And what they found that does, it does a lot of different things. You can research, the benefits of copper peptides, but what it does is it causes your stem cells to be reactivated. And the stem cells are really one of the reasons we age is as we age, our stem cells become inactive. And, a baby is just bursting. Their stem cells are very uh, active and available. But as we age, they become more like dormant. And so these kind of reactivate, the copper peptide is known to help reactivate stem cells. A lot of people are going to other countries because you can't do it, I don't believe, in this country to get stem cell uh, transplants and all that kind of stuff, and it's extremely expensive. So I thought, well, if there's a way that I don't have to inject myself, because I was contemplating, to help my clients, I was contemplating, really kind of recommending peptides but it was just like, most people are not going to inject themselves and they're very expensive. So I thought, well, if I can find a way that does the same thing without that. And so that's really what motivated me to really check into the LifeWave patches. And, I've personally seen some really great benefits. My, families seen great benefits. People I've recommended them to have seen great benefits. And it's super easy. It's like a little round band-aid that you put on every day.
Mm.
And it's been shown some really good stuff.
I was fascinated by this because I've always been interested in beauty and anti-aging. It's all started with Cosmopolitan magazine. I was reading.
Oh, there you go.
They said put on sunscreen. It's the key thing for anti-aging, and I did that. So people were asking me my secret because I had a very big birthday recently,
Oh, you
and
did?
yeah, the big 50. And I thought, oh my gosh, probably just like staying out of the sun and putting on sunscreen was one of the big things. And then having this, knowledge about nutrition in my later 20s, and getting fitter, and eating more blueberries and what I would call really nutrient rich foods and
Yes.
whole foods, as you say, not processed foods. And I
Mhm.
stopped eating sugar because I worked for a company called Perricone MD. You're probably familiar.
Mhm.
They're an American company that does very sciencey skincare, but his whole foundation is the food. And he would say that Dr. Perricone would say that sugars create glycation, which is a way that stiffens the skin. So I always used to say to people when I worked for him actually for a while as well, that your skin is like silk, and when you eat sugar, it's like spraying the silk with a starch, and it kind of just clumps it all up. So I was lucky to know that early on.
Mhm.
And I mean, I eat my little piece of dark chocolate. I had a dessert for our wedding anniversary last week. I'm not like being
Right.
so, I mean, I was very careful for a year. I didn't have any sugar. But I learned my balance in that. But when I found out about the LifeWave patches, it just made so much sense to me because thankfully I'd had some education around, nutrition, and, I always loved biology actually. So
Mhm.
it does seem completely incredulous. Like that,
Right.
something that you could stick on your body that doesn't even put anything into you, that's
Right.
just reflecting your own body heat and your ultraviolet light back, can stimulate the cells to work in a more youthful way. I think what's a good idea to mention is it works in a similar way to how when sunlight hits your skin,
Yes.
your body will automatically convert cholesterol in your skin into vitamin D. So our bodies are naturally designed to respond to light and to work better with certain light waves. So this was really an eye opener for me, and so I'm very glad that you decided to try them eventually, because I believe because you tried them, my aunt Eileen tried them with her husband who has
Mhm.
dementia and had a stroke and very serious issues, and he's improved dramatically. And I've been able to recommend them for my husband, who his scar from his heart surgery has started to heal up,
That's
um,
awesome.
and he feels amazing. His
That's
mind
so
is much
great.
clearer. My mom is taking them, so
Oh,
um,
good.
I think it's really interesting how, we just are living our best lives. We're just trying our best as people. But one
Yes.
person taking a stand on something and, being willing to share what they know can transform many, many other lives. It's like that little light, you light everyone else around you. And
Hmm.
it's,
Or I like the ripple effect, when you throw that water in the pond.
yes.
Yeah, who would have ever thought some beautiful Irish woman, because I decided to get on board with patches, would now get to experience the benefits. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, they're really very, very good. So just in case anybody is curious about that, I have a website you can go to learn about it, and you can talk to myself or Dr. Deb about this. But they have a number of other patches for various other things as well. But the X39 is probably the first one that I'm sure that you would recommend to people. Is that right?
100%. The other patch that I've seen amazing results with is the Eon, which is for inflammation. I started with both the X39 and Eon, and I was having I was just waking up every day and I didn't feel refreshed. And that was one of the when I have a consult with somebody, I'll ask them, "Do you wake refreshed?" Because that's really important. And I kept, for months I was going, why am I not? I thought I was sleeping well, but I must not be because I'm not waking refreshed. It was really bugging me. And literally within one day on the patch, and I started with X39E on next morning, I woke up refreshed, and it's been that way. And then also, I was having a weird heart vibrational thing. It wasn't flutters, it wasn't, you know, um, palpitations or anything like that. It was just this weird vibrate. I'm very in tune with my body.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people become very out of tune with their body, but our bodies constantly tell us a story. And I'm not one of these people that go off and run to a doctor. I just don't do it. And so, I've been having for a couple months this really weird vibrational thing. And within 3 days, that was gone, hasn't returned. My father in law, who's 96 and a half, lives with us. He, with those two patches, he was able to normalize his blood sugar or his blood pressure. And I don't say that anybody's going to have these same results, but I'm just telling you what my results were. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love the Eon patch. I have to say, if you can do both, I recommend both of those. If someone had, like with David, Eileen's husband, because it involves the brain, we have him doing the carnosine patch, which is really good for the brain. We've got a glutathione patch that elevates glutathione in the body, which is a master antioxidant. So yeah, there's other patches, but for sure, X39, many people see dramatic results with that.
Yeah. It was interesting because I was trying it out. I don't think I wasn't like I didn't have a health issue. I was like, okay, I'll put on the X39 for a few hours here and a few hours there and I'll skip days. But within the first few days, I started to want to wear the X39 the same way as I might want to drink a glass of water. So
Mm,
that was my version of my body is telling me something about this.
right. Yeah.
So if anybody's curious about it, there's lots of great information out there. There's clinical research studies. I think there is it about 80 clinical research studies, 130 patents for the patches, and they've been proven to regulate your brain, regulate your heart, improve your skin, boost collagen. So there's lots like that I can say is phenomenal and worth looking into, particularly if you have a health issue, but even if you're just a little bit vain like I am, I just
Hey,
want to look at.
I'll tell you that's part of my reason. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So look, it's been absolutely amazing speaking to you. And I know that you are still working at this. You're a naturopathic doctor. You have a lot to teach and you do teach classes. So I know that your website is where most people can connect with you. Do you want to
Yes.
invite people to sign up for anything in particular?
Yeah. So my website is purelighthealth.com, PURELIGHT health.com. And yes, sign up on there. You can become a part of my tribe. I would definitely recommend getting my book. I am actually currently republishing it. I think there's still a few copies on Amazon, but hopefully that will be finished this week where I can get that new one up there. It's just got a few little tweaks. It hasn't changed a lot, but I wanted to basically kind of take it back from where it was being published. And yeah, sign up if you'd love to learn about classes or any of that kind of stuff, coaching, all of those kind of things.
Hmm. Well, I'm so excited. This book. It's standalone. Anybody can access it. This will be around after you're not around as well, Deb. This is something that people can have in their home, pick up whenever they feel like it, hand it to a family member. Like, your words are going to reach a lot of people with this book.
I
It's called
appreciate that.
Heal Your Journey to Thriving by Dr. Deb Harrell. Thank you so much, Deb, for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. Before we finish up, is there anything that you'd like to say to the listeners? Is there anything, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to say to those listening to us today?
I would really like to say to I encourage you to make yourself a priority. Don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today, because tomorrow may be too late. You know,
Yeah.
had so many people I've lost to cancer and things like that, and by the time they got the diagnosis, it was so far gone that they really couldn't stop the progress. And so I just really encourage you to do whatever it takes to take good care of yourself, to put your own oxygen mask on first, because you can't be good to anybody else unless you take care of you. And so
Hmm.
please make yourself a priority. That's not ego, that is actually love. And it also, my favorite quote is, example is not the main thing in influencing others, it's the only thing.
Say that
And so,
again. Say that one again because it went by so fast that I didn't even catch it.
okay, example is not the main thing in influencing others, it's the only thing. So the only way we influence others is through our example. And so, I encourage people, don't you want to be a good example to your family? Because the reality is, if you look at the statistics of where we are, especially in America, I'm not familiar with the statistics in Ireland, but when I went there and visited, they Irish people look a lot healthier. Um, I just, really, we have a health crisis of epic proportions in our nation, and be an example, because other people are going to be inspired by your example. Take care of yourself. If you're one baby step at a time person, take one baby step at a time. At the end of each chapter of my book, I have an action plan. And so it's meant to help you kind of make some changes gradually, and you'll feel better, you'll be able to do more things, you'll be able to really live your purpose, which is so important.
Because when you feel good, you do good, and you can offer more of what you have to the world. It's beautiful.
Yes,
Oh, so appreciate you being here, Deb.
my
It's
pleasure.
absolutely beautiful. And if anybody has any questions, Dr. Deb would be happy to hear from you. I would be happy to hear from you. And we would love to share what we know. Please find this book, Heal Your Journey to Thriving, and read it and give it to friends and family, because I can highly recommend this book. Um, there's even a lot in here about about faith, about
Hmm.
personal growth, about how to make better choices. Like, what is that how do we get our mind aligned to making those better choices? So it isn't just about what to do, it's also about how to do it.
And there's recipes in the back.
That was one thing my mother-in-law was very excited to see, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite recipes are in there. So, yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Aideen. It's been fun. I actually glad I get to see you and have a face to connect with the beautiful Irish accent and voice. And such a pleasure to meet you and be on your show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deb. Take care, and thank you all for listening. Goodbye from the Resonate podcast. We'll see you next time.